welcome back to HPP, the Hoops Prospects Podcast. In our last episode, which also happened to be our longest ever, we handed out draft grades for all 30 NBA teams. If you've yet to listen to that episode, please, you can do so at hoopsprospects.com or on any of the major podcast outlets, including Apple and Spotify. Also, later this week, we will have a written summary of our draft grades on hoopsprospects.com with updates for recent developments. So check that out too. And so my name is Rich Harris, as usual, and I am joined by fellow analysts Drew Barton, Connor Youngberg, and Cam Reel. Hugh has the day off to sunbathe. Gentlemen, how did you enjoy your brief holiday break? I know most of us never completely stopped working. How is everyone, and what have you been up to?
I'm doing good, Rich. I've been just kind of hanging out, getting ready for the school year to start back up, and yeah, just a lot of sunbathing, like Hugh has been up to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing good, Rich. We took a road trip up to Montana, my girlfriend and I, during our last weekend off, and basically between sitting in a car for 15 hours, I've just done that and then watched a bunch of summer league basketball. I'm sure Connor's thrilled. Our boy Chet Holmgren has been getting it done for us. So a lot of basketball and a lot of driving.
Yeah, I've been here on vacation in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, but I've been stopping to watch my OKC Thunder summer league basketball. Like you said, Chet's been amazing. Chet's been making my day better every time. But yeah, and I've also been doing online school here, which has sucked. Earth science is not very fun. It's easy, but it's not very fun.
What is the class? What's the class?
I'm taking earth science.
Earth science. So just general elective.
So is it flat?
Science somehow.
Is Kyrie right? Is the Earth flat?
I think we have a Kyrie Irving unit later in the year, actually.
I always enjoyed those. I was a computer science and economics major, and I always enjoyed those types of classes. They were like a diversion for me. It's just something different from all the technical math and all that stuff. And my son went to I was going to say NJIT, but he didn't. It's Stevens Institute of Technology, which is one of the best technological schools in the country. But they don't have any classes like that. They don't teach you anything about philosophy, sociology, history, nothing. And I'm like, I could never go to a school like that. It's just like, I wanted a more well-rounded education, but we shall see. He'll probably be a millionaire, so I won't complain. But anyway, Hugh actually has been in Vegas, and he's been working with, I don't know if it's multiple teams. I think it's just one specific NBA team. So helping them doing some talent evaluation training and so forth for younger players. He will be back with us next week. Personally, I've been trying to get caught up on different things, but I've also been doing some work with a European team for the second year in a row, trying to, a lot of European teams, right now are sitting on the edge of their seat, trying to figure out who they can grab from the people who aren't going to go into the G League or the NBA. And there's a lot of guys that aren't even in summer league that right now are visiting teams, like say Patrick McCall from I know Hugh told me he crossed paths with him, your boy from Golden State. And so Patrick's trying to get back in the league, and if he doesn't, then he's got to decide, do I want to go to the G League or do I want to go to Europe? So I'm investigating those guys in a different way than Hugh is, but and saying, okay, looks like McCall is going to make the jump to international ball. Maybe you should look at him, and here's why, blah, blah. So I've been doing stuff like that. All right, so let's dive into, we know Summer League is definitely in full swing, but this week, until we get Hugh back, we're going to focus on free agency, see, what teams we think have done well, what we have, what teams have not done so well, talk about the huge trades, the major signings, and some of the other looming trades that are out there. So I see that our producer has somewhat ironically or totally ironically called our first segment the KD Kyrie fireside chat in the middle of the summer, which I suppose actually that's kind of appropriate. I suppose the Nets do feel like the fire's at their feet, of sort of. As we know, Kyrie opted in. He was kind of forced to because the Nets wouldn't give him an extension. Then KD, of course, does what he always does when Kyrie doesn't get his way. He acts out. He said, despite just signing a new contract, a 4-year, very healthy contract, now he wants out too. I can't imagine being the Nets, brain trust right now. Do we have any? Personally, when the salaries get this high, it gets so hard to move these guys. And then I think the Rudy Gobert trade just complicated things like 10 times more. So do we see any light at the end of the tunnel here for anyone?
There is no way anybody comes out of this happy, with the exception of the team that gets Kevin Durant, and they'll be happy for a year until he wants out again. This has got to be the biggest failure in NBA history, in my opinion, in terms of the talent collected, the resources spent to acquire said talent, and then the fact that they have nothing to show for it. They didn't win anything. They won one playoff series. This is a debacle. I mean, Kyrie is...
Well, it reminds me, totally different circumstances, but does this bring back memories of the Garnett Pierce thing?
Sure.
Where they sold out to bring all those guys in, and everyone said right then, these guys are like 80 years old. You're not going to win a title with them anymore. But they went ahead and did it anyway.
I mean, that was the brand building. I mean, the Nets had just kind of done the whole rebranding thing. So I think part of that was just like, we're going to swing for the fences, put the brand back on the map. We've kind of, redid the logo and did everything. This was just an absolute disaster. I mean, Kyrie Irving, there's one team that wants him. It's the Lakers, because they're so desperate. And it's kind of a reckoning for him, because I think at this point, people are realizing, why do I want this guy? I have him for 1 year. I'm going to have to pay him, or he's going to leave anyways. Why am I going to give up these assets? He's again, I go back, and I'll stand by this from our last episode, most overrated player in the league. By far. It's not close to me.
Okay. Cam, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I called it the fireside chat because we're watching the Brooklyn Nets franchise burn right now. And honestly, KD and Kyrie are just sitting back watching. The problem is there's no destination for either of them. I mean, sure, the Lakers could figure out a way to move Westbrook and their 2 remaining draft picks to get Kyrie, which arguably would be an upgrade over Westbrook in terms of fit right now. I can see that trade happening, just because the Nets are going to be desperate to get rid of him, or lose him for nothing. Big problem is, and Connor has some breaking news for us, which is going to totally spice things up.
Let's hear from Connor.
We're running out of Kevin Durant destinations as we speak.
Why? What's going on, Connor?
I just saw it, Connor. I just saw the news. Just hit my phone.
So as Cam was talking, we got a Woj bomb. Restricted free agent center DeAndre Ayton has agreed to a 4-year, $133 million contract with the Indiana Pacers. Now, I was gonna save this, like I'll wait for till the end of the show, we'll add it on, but it's actually pretty relevant with the KD stuff, because this KD has said, I want to go to the Suns, and the Suns had the assets. They were like, okay, well, if we re-sign DeAndre Ayton, we'll throw Bridges in there. There you go. But I don't think they can trade Ayton if they match that.
They cannot.
Actually, they literally cannot match it and use him in a sign and trade, because by matching it, they're saying we want this player on our roster.
They're going to keep him.
Yeah. What they would have had to done is they would have had to work out the deal with Indiana ahead of time, signed him.
Yeah.
They signed him, and then they could have done it. But the way this has been done, treatable, at least for a while. Not forever, but for a while.
Through December. It'll be through about right around, it's right before the All-Star break. The first 4 months of the season, you're untradeable.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think the Suns are now an option for Kevin Durant anymore. And I was going to bring them up as an option for Kevin Durant, but I don't think they are. So that definitely spices things up.
And this is the first move Indiana's made in the offseason that I don't like. But we'll get on to that later. I'm not an Ayton fan. So
Well, now they got a whole nother. Now they got to trade Miles Turner, and
right,
his value's been, especially. Well, we're gonna get to the Gobert trade, but if Rudy Gobert's getting you 4 first-round picks and 4 players, Miles Turner's getting. I mean, I'd say at least 2, right? At least 2 first-round picks, at least 2 solid players. So, so the Pacers are looking good because I mean, you take that offer sheet with Ayton, assuming if you do get him, he's going to hit another level. Because with the Suns, he hasn't been like the superstar number 1 overall pick, but also when you've got Chris Paul there, in terms of like expanding your game, there's kind of a ceiling there. So I guess Indiana does that, assuming he'll hit another step. And then you got Tyrese Halliburton with the ball, and that was one of the best trades last season for them. But yeah, now KD. I mean, I don't even have a guess anymore, to be honest.
This is what I was debating with myself. I was just thinking about how many realistic destinations there are for him with his contract. It's 4 years. Like, you're still getting Kevin Durant. At his age, you can debate whether or not his contract's really all that good. If you're projecting out, his injury history, but I like thinking about it. There's only like 2 or 3 teams. The Suns are one of them. The other one in my mind is possibly Toronto. Maybe if they're willing to move on from one of their young guys or move Pascal straight up for him. I don't know if they're ready to win right now, but it's a possibility.
Yeah.
The other place I was thinking about is actually Memphis, which the Jaren Jackson injury kind of complicates that possibility. But they have that Steven Adams contract, and they've still got picks and a bunch of young players. If they wanted to move up their timeline, they could. And the only other idea I had was Washington, just because they have a mix of young guys, enough contract, and they could just be like, you know what, let's swing for the fences with Brad Beal and Kristaps Porzingis and KD. That's about it.
I remember when KD hit free agency in 2016. I was a Thunder fan. I had the assumption that he was going to Washington.
He's a DC guy.
He's a DC guy. So, I mean, if Sean Marks, I know Sean Marks and KD are really talking to each other, seeing what they can do. So Sean Marks like, hey, you want to go to Phoenix? That can't happen anymore. Where you want to go? I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Durant's like, send me to Washington. Washington should still have a lot of first round picks to give, if I'm correct. You throw in Hachimura, Davis, but they can field an offer.
Part of it.
Yeah,
contract.
They can field an offer for him, but
yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's really wide open.
It is.
So should we stick with Ayton right now? We were going to talk about him later in the show, but should we follow that train of thought as long as we're on that?
Yeah, let's do it.
And what does this? I didn't look into this deeply because I didn't see this coming. What kind of? Obviously, the Suns didn't see it coming either, though they should have. What kind of cap space does that free up for them? I'm thinking it probably doesn't free up much for them.
Doesn't free up much at all. No. I mean, they had his bird, they had all of his, his rookie bird rights. They had openly said, all the reports had said the Suns straight up, openly, publicly were admitting that they do not view Ayton as worth a max contract, and that they believe they could find a suitable replacement on the open market at a much cheaper rate.
But why not work something? If Indiana, for God knows why, wants him so bad, they have Miles Turner. They have other good assets. Why not work out a deal?
Well, the problem is the Pacers know that the Suns don't want him and that they can just sign him out right. Why would I trade you something if I just get him?
Right.
You're not going to match it.
I think
the Suns screwed the pooch here. I'm telling you, because and I've actually thought last year in the offseason, I'm thinking, okay, you almost won it. So now you just got to tweak this team just a little bit more, get a little more depth, get a couple quality pieces. They didn't. They didn't. They basically brought back the same team. And I thought, I said in my preseason article, what I call my fearless forecast, I said, I don't see the Suns being the same team this year. I didn't predict them to win the championship, though we did in our playoffs. I think most of us went with the Suns in our playoff show, but in the preseason, I'm like, I don't like what this team did. So now this is 2 years in a row that they've messed up big time.
Yeah, the Suns championship window, in my opinion, actually closed when they didn't get it done. That was their best shot. They caught everybody kind of by surprise. And I like Devin Booker. I don't think Devin Booker is a well-rounded, good enough overall player to be the pure alpha on a championship team. And Chris Paul never has been. Like Chris, whether it's injuries or whatever you want to argue, he's never been able to get over the hump. That's not entirely on him. I mean,
and that's not getting any easier.
And that's only going to get harder. The Suns window, unless Mikal Bridges can take a jump into becoming more than just kind of a 3-and-D guy and can become a legitimate all-star, their window, in my opinion, is closed.
I'll tell you what about Mikal Bridges. I don't think that will ever happen. And I'll tell you why, because I watch every single Villanova game every season. Okay. And I watched that kid for how many years did he play? I don't remember, but
3, I think.
Yeah. But I saw him plenty of times. And he was a very good player, very good defender. He was the guy that they put on the best offensive player on the other team. He could defend multiple positions. He could score, but you know what? He wasn't a great scorer, and he's still not a great scorer. And what really drove that team was Brunson. Okay, and then to get them over the hump, it was DiVincenzo. It wasn't
Mikal
Bridges. Without Brunson and DiVincenzo, they don't win the national championship. Because
Mikal
Bridges is a very good player, but he's not the kind of guy that can carry a team. Believe it or not, Jalen Brunson is more likely to carry a team than
Mikal.
Bridges.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm willing, like going off of what you guys are saying about the Suns window, realistically, their window was extended by whether or not DeAndre Ayton could be a bigger part of the offense or not. And they decided that, and I think this is a coaching mistake, they decided that he was nothing but a screen and roller with Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And, you're basing your offense around an aging point guard who's undersized and always has been, and a shooter. Realistically, Devin Booker is a mid-range scorer. He's not going to set up for everybody else. And, now we could see Ayton go to the Pacers, have a team built around him. He's going to get set up by Tyrese Halliburton all the time, and he's going to get to post looks and be able to play that more Embiid-like game, which is, I think, what he wants to do. And, it could look like a massive collapse because they did have the talent. They had the window. This was still their year. They still had a great record, too, in spite of injuries. And they screwed it.
Yep, they did. I was about to bring up a name that Hugh and I, a guy we were talking about last night, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it. But he was a star in Australia this year, played for Baylor, but Baylor always has like 50 big guys. But this is a guy who did really, really well in Australia and is now on their summer league team. And now I think he's just whispered to his agent, "Hey, I got a job in the NBA." And his name is Joel Luau Okul. Am I saying that right, Connor?
I think so.
Okay.
Totally sure.
And he can block shots, he can rebound, he can probably shoot better than Ayton. And then, there were a lot of people. It's always hard when guys get limited playing time, and he was one of those guys in a log jam at Baylor. But there were people that I talked to that really loved this guy, that thought he was at least a second round pick. And the way he played in Australia last year, I was actually talking to somebody else last night about him, and we were saying, we both agreed that we thought he could be a star in Spain. So if you could be a star in Spain, you could be a good player in the NBA. So so not that is that the thing that pushes these guys over the edge? No way. But it's just a side note. It's funny that the guy that I was talking about a lot yesterday turns out to maybe now has a job. All right. So are we done with Aiden? Should we move on to DeJounte Murray going to Atlanta?
Let's do it.
Okay, so this was surprising. I know this surprised a lot of people, especially after Murray. I mean, Murray has been, making steady progress. He even was impressive as a rookie. But this year he had a breakout season, and we talked, that for surprisingly his name had been in trade talks, all leading up to the draft, and it happened. With San Antonio sending he and Jock Landale to the Hawks for 3 future first rounders. And they also swap a pick, I think I believe that's to San Antonio's advantage.
Yeah.
And then where Atlanta interns sent off Danilo Gallinari, who was subsequently waived and then signed by Boston. And Landale, by the way, was traded by the Hawks to the Suns soon after he landed in Atlanta. So what do we think of this? And we have a listener question down below on the same topic, so maybe we can answer that question right now. Is basically what the heck's going on here? Why did San Antonio move their best player? I mean, I know they got a lot of picks, but isn't this just dragging out a rebuild that really seems ready to take the next step?
So I think this is a situation where two things can be true. I love DeJounte Murray. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I've been high on him since the jump, and to finally see him get to run a team and ascend. They were by no means a playoff team, was great. But also I think this move does very little for the Hawks' actual championship window. He's a great fit. They needed another point guard ball handler. They needed a perimeter defender. Murray checks all those boxes. But does this move them past the Celtics after their recent moves? No way. I don't think if Milwaukee just gets healthy, I don't think they're better. Are they better than the Heat, who just beat them in 5? Is DeJounte Murray worth 4 games in a playoff series? I don't know. So I think this is a lot for a move that maybe moves you up 1 or 2 seeding spots and maybe wins you a first round series. So I don't know.
I'll say this though. I don't think it moves them to the needle next season per se, but Murray's young. Murray's, I want to say 25, 26.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Trae Young, obviously still really young, and they're going to be a tandem. They're going to be their backcourt for the foreseeable future. So although next year, I don't think they're going to make huge splashes in terms of making the finals or conference finals. I think in a few years, you're looking at a really good team. And I just think DeJounte Murray is one of the best defensive guards in the league. He's made multiple, or just one, not sure how many, defensive teams. And obviously Trae Young I think it's safe to say he's probably the worst defender in the NBA. So
statistically he is.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and by the eye test.
So you pair a guard who can't play defense, but he's one of the best offensive players in the league. I think he had 20, 29, and 10 last season, which is insane. But then you pair him with a defensive stopper who can also do everything. He's an all-around player. He put up a bunch of triple doubles. I really like this trade for the Hawks, especially because in terms of players, they didn't have to give up an Okongwu, who's shown flashes of being really good for them. They just gave up Gallinari, who's honestly been really bad for them in the first round picks, which are always tough. But for DeJounte Murray, I just think this team's going to be really good in the future. I think Drew's right in saying the needle for next year isn't move. I think future years, you keep making moves. I think that's a really solid backcourt pairing.
I think John Collins is the X factor here. He wants out, or has said he wants out. If this move, for whatever reason, reinvigorates his faith in the franchise and they can make it work, I think they become a lot more intriguing, because now you have arguably the best, or at least one of the most dynamic backcourts in the league. And then you have a legitimate stretch 4 who can give you 20 and 10. But if he leaves, whether it's for nothing, however that situation plays out, I think it's a big factor, because he's been battling injuries. But when he's healthy, he's shooting I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, he averaged 20, 10, and shot 40% from three.
Yep.
You have that plus those two guards, okay, but I'm kind of leaning towards it looks like Collins is still like, I don't want to be here anymore. And without him, I just don't know what the ceiling for the team is.
Yeah. I bought a John Collins jersey after that year. So, yikes.
John the Baptist has to be the best nickname.
What's that?
John the Baptist is one of the best names in the league.
Well, one of my best nickname for a jersey I have is White Chocolate. So I bought it after his rookie season. I thought he was going to be the next Pete Maravich. Not so much. Not a bad player, but not the next Pete Maravich. So Cam, what are your thoughts here?
Oh, I just think, to me, this trade really symbolizes that the Hawks front office doesn't think you can build a winning team around Trae Young as the primary ball handler. He, obviously he demands a lot of respect, but he only demands that respect when he has the ball in his hands, or he has a basic spot up, which nobody's leaving him. But to me, this is like, wait, we can go and get an actual playmaker, a top defensive guard who can set up everybody else when Trae's not in the game, and is going to force Trae to learn how to play off the ball. Because that's what really differentiates some of the better shooting guards and like shooting point guards from Trae, is that he has no off-ball skills at all. He just stands and watches.
Yeah,
a problem since college is he can often struggle against the blitz, because he's small. So if you get the right guys out there on him, I mean, in college it didn't even take the right guys; it just took two guys. They, once they realized how good he was, they're like, screw this. We're going to cover him with two guys and just get the ball out of his hands.
Yeah,
Oklahoma, once they figured that out, fell apart that year. Now it's not that bad at this level because he has a lot more talent around him and he has more options to go to, but it's still, I see it being an issue at times.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, like the reason that John Collins doesn't want to be there is he spends half of his time on offense watching Trae Young dribble.
Yes.
Like
yes.
He wants to be a part of the offense because he's a damn good player, as it turns out, and he can really score too. And I think adding Murray, that's going to allow them to have so much more versatility on offense, which they were already a pretty good offense, even with Trae Young just dribbling the ball. Like he is one of the best offensive players in the league, in spite of the fact that he doesn't set up anybody else.
So turning this argument around, I have mixed feelings on the trade, but I do think I basically agree that it's a very good fit, very good idea for Atlanta. The question becomes, did they give up too much? I don't, it probably looks fair on that level, but with the thing that makes me scratch my head, and which was the question that our listener had, was what the hell is San Antonio thinking?
Oh man.
So what I am thinking, if I'm running San Antonio, is, man, I have acquired a ton of talent. Now it's time to maybe package a couple of these pieces and maybe bring in a real veteran that we know can, push us over the edge. Like a John, they were trying to get John Collins, as far as I know, or somebody like that. And we'll give up a little youth now that we've collected so much. And we'll plug in somebody. You'll bring in a John Collins, and we'll keep Murray, and then we have all these other talented young players around them, and then they're like, no, we'll get rid of our best player and we'll start over. Wait, you can't start over when you're already starting over. I mean, I just don't quite get it. I mean,
they are thinking one thing, Rich, and it is in a French jersey, and it's 7-2, and that is all that they see and all that they care about now. And I don't necessarily agree with that.
No.
At all. I think I totally agree with you. If you package some of that youth and some of these picks, kept DeJounte, landed a John Collins, with what we believe that the San Antonio organization represents, they are back in the playoffs sooner rather than later. But instead, they got rid of DeJounte, did not get John Collins, and Lonnie Walker left, who I don't think had ascended the way we thought. But
no,
who knows? Like, hey, he wasn't horrible. He wasn't awful. Like, he was a usable NBA piece. So I think that the problem San Antonio has had is they've just been putting off the rebuild for about 4 years too long. And so now they're scrambling to try to, well, we need the picks. And like they had the good young play already, but they realized, crap, it's not enough. So they blew it up already. Like when you said, it wasn't even off the ground. So they just
the other
waited.
thing is a lot of their picks over the years have been around the 15 to 25 range, so they're never getting the cream of the crop. And so they're getting the Devin Vassell's and the Lonnie Walkers and so it's nobody they're going to hit a home run with. Connor?
Yeah, I think for the Spurs, at first I was like, I didn't, it didn't click for me at first why they would do that. So the San Antonio Spurs have so much young guard talent that they haven't had a chance to develop. And, they just drafted a few, Branham and Wesley, and I think in a Primo last season in the lottery. And I think moving DeJounte frees up minutes. Now, who's going to play the one is a concern, probably Trey Jones. But I think giving other guys an opportunity to be a primary ball handler. And I think this is just the reset that they need. I think the front office was like, hey, DeJounte Murray's too good for us. There's potentially 2 generational talents in next year's draft with Scoot Henderson and Victor Wembanyama. Let's hit a hard reset. Let's look at these guys, these young guys, and let's just play it out and let's start over. And I think that's much better than saying, let's keep DeJounte, let's get a second fringe all-star guy, and let's just be mediocre. I think that a hard reset is better than that. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that. Utah's another thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of front offices are just like, look, we've hit a wall. We got to restart. And I think that's exactly what San Antonio just did.
The only problem I have with that is it doesn't fit Pop's timeline. Cam?
That's true.
Yeah, I think realistically too, the Spurs didn't have a lot of agency in this one. Part of the reason that things accelerated so quickly was that Rich Paul's hand was active in this one. Clutch Sports supposedly told the Spurs that DeJounte would not be re-signing next year and that he wouldn't be signing an extension. And so to me, it's kind of a semblance of like these big market guys don't want to be in small markets anymore. And regardless of how good of a relationship DeJounte Murray had with his team, his coach, the organization, the city, it doesn't matter because he can go and make more money in Atlanta. And his agents know that. And I don't know. I think it's a really rough precedent to set because like I said, there is some potential in San Antonio. All it takes is that one kind of veteran guy to come in and it can change the format of the team,
Yeah.
But,
I'm an old guy. I'm an old fart, but you know what? I really get tired of this crap of, I can make more money in Atlanta and San Antonio. Okay, so what? What are we talking? 5 million a year? So you're going to make 50 million instead of 45? Wow. When's enough? I get tired of that crap. But anyway, if that's true, what you said about the agency, then it becomes a no-brainer, and Spurs really don't have much of another choice. As far as and here's the other problem I see, not knowing what you just said. Okay, not knowing what you just said, if they're just doing it for draft picks, I don't think they're bad enough to get the first or second pick. They're not. There are a lot of teams out there that are worse than the Spurs. So in my opinion. So Drew?
I think they're collecting them to be ready to trade them. I agree with you, Rich. I think they'll be talented enough to not be a bottom 2 or 3 team, but I think the goal is have enough on deck so we can throw such a big package of 2 young guards, 5 future picks. We want the first because we want Victor or whoever they decide. That's the strategy. I think that's what they're doing, and that's a page out of the Thunder's book. I think the Thunder are just there's no way you can't draft all these guys. Dude, you don't have enough roster spaces to have 6 picks a year. That's an exaggeration, but you can't fill a roster that way. So I think the plan is have so many assets that you look at a team and go, we are going to give you 5 first. We're going to give you Primo and Vassell or whoever. How do you turn that down if you're a team that's also rebuilding?
And I was just going to mention the Thunder because I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think they're doing what the Thunder did, kind of, Obviously, the Thunder kind of had the trade assets of Westbrook and Paul George, not quite DeJounte Murray. But I think what we're going to see the Thunder do is, or what the Thunder have done so far and what they're going to do is they got young talent in SGA, and then they just drafted guys over years and waited for them to develop. And I think next year we're going to see someone's going to request a trade, and the Thunder are going to be like, here's the picks, and it's going to happen. And then the Thunder, just like that, they're going to be competing again. And I think the Spurs, I think that's exactly what they're going to do. I think they're going to try and develop Keldon Johnson maybe into a really, really good player, which I think they can do, to be honest. I really like Keldon Johnson's game. So I think they're going to try and develop a lot of these guys, see if some of them are stars, keep drafting, maybe Wembanyama's the guy. And then down the line, they have all these picks from this rebuild, and then splurge it at the trade deadline or in the offseason for a disgruntled star. And I think that's kind of the way to do it for small market teams. With the Murray trade, and if that Rich Paul thing is true, that's scary for a fan of a small market team. I know like SGA signed that 5-year extension and Lou Dort just re-signed. That makes me happy because every year it seems like guys are going to bigger markets. But yeah, I think the way to rebuild is to draft and through trades if you're a small market team. And I think that's what the Spurs are going to do. Like
you heard it here first. SGA and like 10 first rounders for KD. The reunion is on. I honestly, I do think Oklahoma is an underrated like destination because KD doesn't have any power. That's the thing. He doesn't. It's not a 1-year deal. If they come to the Nets and go, we will give you SGA and Lou Dort or SGA and whatever, and we'll give you 5 future firsts. Do the Nets say no to that?
But the thing is, like, we don't have to give up an SGA or a Lou Dort or even a Giddey, to be honest with you. Like, I genuinely think we can just give Trey Man's really good, Poku, Beasley, like, who are not studs. But you package that with literally we can give up 10 first-round picks. Literally, we can do that. And then we have the core, and then we have KD, and then it's like, it'd be fun. If a curveball like that happened, I'd be really happy as a reformed KD hater. But no, I think I think we literally could just be like, here's some bench guys, and here's 10 first-round picks from bad teams. Like, there you go. That'd be fun.
That was well said by a Thunder fan who thinks the people in Brooklyn actually try to buy the Brooklyn Bridge.
Hey, it's all fun and games until KD forces them to move the franchise back to Seattle.
They're gonna rename themselves the Durants. We're gonna be the Seattle Durantulas.
Seattle Durants.
All right, so let's move on to the infamous Rudy Gobert trade, which they sent to Minnesota for a boatload. I'll try to list off all these. There's Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Leandro Balmero, Walker Kessler, the number 22 pick this year, and Jared Vanderbilt. 1, 2, 3, 4 first rounders and a pick swap, which I believe favors Utah as well. So, Cam, you have a thought on that?
Oh, my first reaction as a Nuggets fan is to just like, I'm just so happy that Tim Connolly got a bag from Minnesota to be their GM. I mean, this guy is the highest paid GM in the league. He has stake in the team, and he makes this trade. Oh, thank goodness. He would have traded MPJ for like a bag of rocks and some cash, like a couple picks. That's it. Like, I don't know. This trade is insane. To think that they think this is going to put them over the top. I love it. I think it's hilarious.
Oh man, Cam, I'm right there with you, man. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a player fetch this much when they're not worth like half of it. In my opinion,
literally, like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about, hey, is Rudy Gobert like good enough to stay on the court in the playoffs? Like,
yeah,
we've been talking about this for years.
Like, I will say, I think the Gobert discourse has swung so aggressively. Like, I think at one point the NBA community was like, this is the greatest defensive center of all time. He's got 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Then we saw him get schemed out of games against average competition in the playoffs, and everyone was like, oh, he's horrible, he's trash. I think it's a happy medium. Like, I think he is an impact player. I think he can matter. He can't be your second best, if not your highest paid player on your team. We know that. But like, I just don't get, you had Kessler, who in theory is going to be able to do the same things as what you're hoping to expect with a better offensive game, is like what you would hope. I don't know.
You haven't given Balmero a chance, who was a super highly touted prospect coming out of Spain, who can do a little bit of everything. Including,
I like Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
like, I think.
I'm not sad. And I mean, Beverly certainly, helped that team, get to the playoffs. But to me, it's all the picks. And then it becomes also about the fit. They were talking. I've heard Minnesota's Brain Trust talk at Summer League, saying, I think Rudy dominates in international play like the Olympics, because he can get the ball in the post and he can actually do more than just rim run. And I'm like, okay, but I still, Towns, this is a thing with guys like Towns and Trae Young. They give you headaches. They just give you headaches. You gotta be a contortionist, with your roster, to try to find the right make. And this seems like really desperate. Connor?
I have a weird stance on this trade. So if we do a little flashback to, I think it was the last podcast where we did draft grades, I went off about how Walker Kessler makes absolutely no sense. But the reasons I said it didn't make sense is pretty much the exact reason why Rudy Gobert wouldn't make sense. But I don't hate it. I think Cat playing 4 is the biggest question mark for me. Like, I still don't think the way Rudy Gobert gets played out in the playoffs by some teams through scheme, I think that'll happen to Cat at the 4. But hypothetically, you're putting one of the best offensive big men we've ever seen, skill-wise, and one of the best defensive centers we've ever seen, and just putting them together. And I think that's not an awful decision. I think Anthony Edwards has the potential to be like genuinely a superstar, and he still has to progress. I think D'Angelo Russell, the discourse has been weird there with him. I still think he's a serviceable like point guard for a really good team. And I think they have perimeter defenders that they didn't have in Utah. Utah had Royce O'Neal. That was it. But I think in Minnesota, you have McDaniels, you have Taurean Prince, who they just re-signed. Like, I think you have guys on the wing that can defend. So I don't hate the construction of the team. But I think X factor is by far Karl Anthony Towns. If he can commit to playing the 4, if he can drop some weight, if he can get more athletic, if he can really commit to playing the power forward well, I think this might not be a bad trade. I think they can be like a top seed in the West, and they can make not a finals run per se, but I don't want to go that far. But I think the Timberwolves were really, really good last season, and I think they got considerably better. But it all comes down to Cat for me.
All right, I'm building up comments here in my head. Remind me, one is about losing weight and one's about Kessler. Why Cam, you're up next, but can somebody look up where Walker Kessler ranks all time with blocks per game or blocks in a season in NCAA history? Cam, but give me your thoughts on what we've been talking about here.
Wait, I don't disagree, Connor, that in theory you can make that fit work, because I agree. Personally, I think Cat is a 4, and that's why their defense has never worked in Minnesota. But the problem is you're now relying on D'Angelo Russell to play make for 2 centers, basically. You're also completely clogging the paint for Anthony Edwards, which is an awful move. Like, they would be better off keeping a guy like Walker Kessler so they have that option to go big, and on top of that, it's not a win now move because you just traded away all of your good role players. Like Pat Bev is a playoff guy. Malik Beasley is a playoff guy. That guy can give you 20 points off the bench in 15 minutes. And granted, he has some off the court issues, whatever, but that's a good player. And Jared Vanderbilt basically played that role for the Timberwolves last year. He's going to be the rebounder. He's going to do all the dirty work that Cat doesn't want to do. And on top of all of those good rotational players, you're trading away a huge number of picks. Like you're going to win the championship next year. And it makes no sense. On top of that, Gobert's not even on Anthony Edwards' timeline. It's crazy to think that I don't know. The one good argument that I've heard for this trade is that Gobert is the type of guy that's willing to stay in Minneapolis, which, you know what? I'll give you some brownie points for that. It's hard to find a guy that's going to come to Minneapolis, enjoy being there. Like, it's cold up there. It's cold, flat. What you got to do? Like, go to the Mall of America. Cool. Like, I don't know, the restaurant scene.
Ice fishing.
Yeah, ice fishing.
Vikings game.
Rudy Gobert is going to break through the ice. Like, that guy can't go ice fishing. You kidding me, Rich? Come on.
Cross country skiing. It's a popular sport in France.
There you go.
Man, I would pay to see him I would pay to see Gobert put some skis on and cross country ski. I would pay money to fly out there and watch that happen. Exactly.
I well know that skiing pretty much at any level suits the shorter man. I thank goodness. That's why I was a pretty good skier. Connor, you had
I do want to mention the Jazz side of this trade. Because now originally, and we'll get into Gobert's former co-star just a little bit. But originally the plan was, let's trade Gobert, get role players, get picks. We're just going to build around Donovan Mitchell for forever. And that was the plan, which was a little confusing, but sure, Mitchell's young. You can still, you have time. But I think after looking at the contract that Bradley Beal just got to be on a bad team, I think the Jazz, I think they're going to trade Donovan Mitchell. I think they have to reset, similar to how the Spurs did. I think they're going to be one of those teams that's like the number 1 and 2 guys are really, really good, and we're going to be mediocre. We don't want to be the team that's the 10 seed in the West, paying Donovan Mitchell $250 million to average 30.
And your first round pick is number 25. And
yeah, exactly. Yes. So I think the Gobert trade is kind of the first step in a lot of moves. I think we're going to see Mitchell gone, Clarkson gone, Bogdanovich gone. And once you get all those guys away and look at the assets you've built up, I think the Jazz are looking pretty good if they do decide to hit the full reset. I think their rebuild's really good. And if I'm the Jazz in any trade calls for Donovan Mitchell, and they're like, hey, we'll give you 3 first-round picks, I'm like, what? We just traded Gobert for 4. Like, you're going to have to give me 5. So I think the Jazz put themselves in a really good spot to hit reset with this trade.
Drew, did you have anything?
Yeah, something just popped up on my feed. Apparently, the Ayton offer sheet will not process until midnight Eastern time. So supposedly there's a 7.5 hour period where a sign and trade could happen.
Wow.
So if Bobby Marks is really that guy, we're about to see if Bobby Marks can put on his best Bob Myers hat and get it done. So I just thought it was interesting. But yeah, I agree with Cam and Connor. This trade to me is the danger of having a franchise that's been so anemic. Like, you get a little bit of playoff success, you win 3 get playoff games, and now you think you're the next best thing. This trade makes no sense. I mean, I also am not a Donovan Mitchell fan. I don't think that guy can lead your team at all. He doesn't defend. He's a small guard. Like, we see it time and time again. We see it. He's not going to carry you. So I think both teams are just kind of like trying to make the best out of a crappy situation. I think one team is just really optimistic in the Wolves for no real reason. And then I think the other team is thinking that, we're going to appease Donovan and we're going to keep him. But Connor's right. They're going to be the 10th seed. Maybe they sneak into a play-in game here or there. So I think both sides deserve somewhat of like a failing grade here. But I guess Utah did extract a massive amount of assets, but they're not going anywhere. Not in the West.
At least not yet. Not yet.
I think
Also,
Utah's
Rich, I've
grade
got
is
your-
to be determined.
Yeah. Also, Rich, I've got your stat on Walker Kessler blocks.
Okay.
They've only been keeping track of block percentage in a single season since 2009. But of course, Walker Kessler has the highest block percentage of all time since 2009 of 19.05%.
Okay. And he averaged 4.6 per game, which actually wasn't best in the country this year. It was Jamarian Sharp from Western Kentucky, who I believe is somewhere around 7'5". He's like another Manute Bull.
Cool.
So
but Kessler's block rate was higher than Sharp's.
Okay. And the thing about me with Kessler, it seemed like every game I watched him, he was blocking 7, 8, 9, 10 shots a game. He got triple double several times this year off of having 10 block games. So I'm thinking, you know what? You are really going to kick yourself in the butt if Walker Kessler turns out to be a rim runner and a guy that gives you 3 blocks a game. You're going to kick yourself in the butt. So yeah, the other thing is about Towns' weight. One thing I have learned over the years is a heavy guy, it's rare for them to lose it. It just is. I mean, guys get in shape, but like, Hugh, I won't mention the player's name, but Hugh brought up a name to me, and I says, he's still heavy, and Hugh's like, yes. It's just some guys just and that's one of the things I have concern about Zion. Is just it's hard for some people because of their body chemistry and so forth, and maybe their mental attitude or their work ethic to keep the weight off. And and a lot of heavy guys just stay heavy. It's just
Zion's issue is he got drafted to the place with the best food. So. That's the issue with Zion.
That's true. Good point. All right, so now we'll move on to a boring trade, but yet a significant one, and that's the Celtics acquiring veteran point guard Malcolm Brogdon. They gave up. I don't know if they gave up that much. They gave up Aaron Nesmith, Daniel Tice, Nick Stauskas, Malik Fitz, Juwan Morgan. The last 3 are on partial guaranteed contracts. And lastly, a 2003 first round pick, which should be pretty low pick because it's a Celtics pick. So I see this as being like the Celtics gave up a bunch of stuff they could afford to give up, and they got the point guard they needed. Anybody else?
This was the best, in my opinion, move of the offseason that didn't include the draft. Like, obviously, if you got a good rookie, but Boston, Rich, you and I have talked about it. All of us have talked about they need a point guard. Marcus Smart is not a point guard. In fact, Marcus Smart actually is more likely to make a dumb play with the basketball than a smart one, probably overall. They needed someone to set up their offense, not just against the Warriors, but throughout the season. It's going to take off mileage on Jason Tatum. It's going to take mileage off of Jaylen Brown. This was the best move. I've been a Malcolm Brogdon fan since his days at Virginia. I think the injuries of the last 2 years have definitely put some, tarnish on, him being a second round steal and winning that rookie of the year over Embiid and all that. Right. But this is a guy who knows how to play the game. He is 6'5", so he can switch. He can shoot. Like, he, in my opinion, is the perfect Celtics player. Like, I think this is the best move of the offseason. I love Malcolm Brogdon. This scares me as a Warriors fan because a team that we just beat just got significantly better and gave up nothing. They gave up. This was robbery for a guy who averages like 18 and 6. They gave up nothing. They gave up one rotational piece. Yeah. One rotational piece in Tice. Everyone else, Malik Fitz played at St. Mary's. I've seen him play. He averages 25 claps and a towel wave a game. He's a throwaway. Juwan Morgan averages 30 claps and 2 towel waves a game. Throwaway. And like you said, that first round pick means nothing to the Celtics because they think they're going to win it all next year. So highway robbery. I get the rebuild on the Pacers end. You get the first rounder and, whatever. Maybe you can flip some of these other guys in another trade, but this is the best move of the offseason.
You know what? Brogdon actually reminds me of an old Celtic. Not as good, but and not as dynamic, but Dennis Johnson. Brings back Dennis Johnson vibes to Boston. Connor?
Yeah, I also think this is probably the best move of the offseason that any team's made. Agree with Drew there. It's also one of my favorites. I think when Brogdon signed with Indiana and Milwaukee lost him, I thought, obviously it ended up being wrong, but I thought Milwaukee was like done. I think Brogdon is such a great glue guy. Because like we're talking a couple years ago, he was 50, 40, 90. He's a playmaker. Richie mentioned he's a great defender. This is quite literally the perfect piece for Boston. Like literally perfect. And obviously there's a bunch of stars requesting trades this season. And the Celtics, as a big marker, is like there's been some KD discourse, not rumors, but no, I think this is a perfect move. And they're like, honestly, the Celtics right now, we're so far away, but they're my early favorite to really like, I think they're right now my best team in the league, to be honest, with this Brogdon move. I just think he's the perfect player. And like you said, Naismith is a solid bench player, not really.
Yeah, I was never high on him. High on him.
He became like Rudy Gobert for 2 minutes in the playoffs. That was fun. When Marcus Smart was out. That was the highlight of his career. Daniel Tice cannot seem to stay on Boston. Like I think this is the second.
He's a solid backup, but he's not a needle changer. Yeah. Exactly.
And like you said, that first round pick's gonna be nothing. Like this is, I know Indiana had to move on, but this is like robbery, to be honest. Brogdon's just the perfect piece for Boston. Like I really love this for them.
Let's check in with Cam because he has a very sad face on.
Oh no, I'm very happy. I just want to say, Brad Stevens, well done. When they moved him up to president of basketball ops, and supposedly, theoretically, maybe told Danny Ainge that he should retire. I was really interested to see if he was going to be any good at this job as a guy that had no history in the front office. And I think he's proved that he's a pretty damn good GM because he fleeced the Pacers. I mean, rebuilding team, whatever. But at some point, you got to get good. And Malcolm Brogdon's one of those players that makes your team better. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best defenders in the league on the wing. I've seen him compared to like a miniature Kawhi, and I don't think it's that inaccurate. Like they have pretty similar offensive games. It's pretty simple, straight and drive, like pull up mid range, a little bit of pick and roll, but really they're there to be absolute plus defenders. I gotta disagree on the point guard aspect. I don't think he's a point guard. He's really a shooting guard to me.
It was that way. It was that way at Virginia too. He did a little bit of both.
Yeah, to me, he's an upgrade of Derek White. Like he's going to be
nothing wrong with Derek White though.
No, but he's better than Derek White. He's a better defender and he's a better offensive player and he's a better shooter. Like he's going to fill that role perfectly. And now you get to bring Derek White off the bench where he should be when he was really starting most of the time. The other really underrated part of this is they cleared out a ton of roster space, and now they get to go and sign better guys. They can just pick up Trevion Williams. Like, cool. We get to add a guy that can play make from the post, and I just think it's an awesome move.
Yeah, Connor, final thoughts.
While we're on Indiana, we'll talk about another move they made while we're recording this podcast. Woj has tweeted out that the Suns are not interested in negotiating a sign and trade, but they are expected to match the Ayton offer. So
okay, that means he's stuck in Phoenix until the trade deadline, basically.
That's nuts.
Yeah, because what are you going to get out of that? You're going to have a disgruntled player knows he's leaving town. You're going to have, you're going to basically wait. You're going to have to wait to freaking Valentine's Day to start your season.
Literally,
and then turn
literally-
around and expect to win a championship. Like, who are you
literally
trading
all they have
for?
to do, is be like, hey, Indiana, just give us Miles Turner back and have a great day.
Yeah. Now
And there you go.
that I'm all for. And I think everybody
Right.
would, I think Miles Turner, for whatever reason, I think hasn't been respected enough in Indiana. And
Yep.
it's every year they're trading him. I thought there were several times he should have been on the all defensive team. And I'm not just saying that because of the block shots. I'm looking at like synergy and analytics. And you compare him to some of the guys that are called great defenders. And, his synergy numbers were much better, and I think, at Texas, he could actually hit an outside shot once in a while. And this is something that should have been developed more. So I think that I could understand why he's frustrated in Indiana. And that would be nice. That would be nice. So the Suns wouldn't get totally fleeced and we wouldn't have to call them idiots for the next 5 years. And and Indiana gets the guy they want. All right, so now let's move on to some free agent signings, which didn't offer a lot of wheeling and dealing, though I assume with the first one we're going to talk about was the most discussed free agent, surprisingly, Jalen Brunson, who just a few months ago put up 41 points in a playoff game for Dallas, picked up, for an injured Luka Doncic. And he's getting 4 years, 104 million. So it's about 26 million a year. Knicks have been busy in free agency, keeping us. Well, they re-signed Mitchell Robinson. They signed Isaiah Hartenstein, who's a very nice option as a backup center from the Clippers. So what do we think? I know we were somewhat critical of the Brunson trade and kind of gearing your whole off season here. What do we think how the Knicks have done in free agency?
So this one's interesting because I know we've all kind of like given the Knicks their fair share of, crap. And I think the biggest issue with this isn't the deal itself, because I believe Brunson's going to be making roughly like a little over 27.5 million per year. If this is how it's structured, over the 4 years, that puts him at the 14th point guard salary in the NBA, which I think is really not that far off if he's going to transition into like a 1A, 1B kind of role more full time. Like he's right in there with Kyle Lowry and Mike Conley. Those are the guys ahead of him and directly behind him. And I think he's better than both of those guys right now. So I don't have an issue with that salary, but the moves that they made for a guy who I just don't see being the biggest needle mover. Like if they had an established star, if they had a Luka Doncic and they brought him in to be like, hey, he can push us over the top, I'm all for it. 27 million a year. He has proven over the last 2 seasons he's ready maybe to take on a bigger role. He's shined in the playoffs when he's needed to. But all the moves, they gave up Duren. They're giving away picks and they're not adding young talent. It's like a core of Barrett, Randall, and Brunson is not making any real noise in the East. And again, I understand, like when we talked about the Hawks, Connor brought up a good point of like in the future this could work. I don't think in the future this is going to get any better. I think Julius Randle peaked last season, or I guess 2 seasons ago now. 2 seasons ago. So if he can't replicate that again, he's not really doing much. Barrett, I think the jury's still kind of out. I think he's going to cap out as just a really solid, scorer on the wing, but that's about it.
Maybe a couple all-star appearances.
Exactly. Jalen Brunson doesn't move that needle, and giving him $100+ million contract while the salary's not egregious, I think the fit in terms of what they need from him just doesn't make sense. It's too much for a guy who's not going to make you that much better. Now, maybe he ascends, becomes a 28 point per game scorer and becomes an MVP. I could be totally wrong. I don't see that, and I like Brunson. So I just think the Knicks went through a lot of holes for a guy that I don't really think changes your fortunes one way or the other. But maybe that's just me.
Connor?
Yeah, I am on the more positive side with the Knicks for this. I think Brunson, honestly, I didn't know the 14th point guard salary thing. That actually makes this deal look a lot better. Because I remember at first it was like 110. It was like 110 for Brunson, but honestly, it's not 104 and 14 salary. It's not bad at all. But I think the Knicks, they haven't had that franchise point guard in so long. Like, obviously, Ntilikina didn't work out. And, before that, I mean, mid 2000s, they were, they had a bunch of, like, Stephon Marbury guys who just, like, came in for a year, old stars. But I think this is the first time in forever they're going to have, like, a franchise point guard. Like, even with Melo, they had, Baron Davis? So I think the Brunson stuff is good. The stuff around Brunson, like you said, Drew, that stuff's a little iffy. Like with pick 11, that whole trade was weird for OKC, with OKC. And, some quality role players got traded. Burks was really good for them at sometimes. Nerlens Noel, I watched him play in OKC. I really love his game. But I think now that all of that's over, Brunson's a Knick, and now, we can kind of look at their roster and what they've acquired and what they've given out. Honestly, I think this is a pretty good offseason for the Knicks. I think they have quality role players, and I think they have draft assets, not insanely good draft assets, but they have them for pick 11. Randall is the biggest X factor because I don't think Randall's very good. I think Julius Randle thinks he's an MVP caliber player, and he's just not. But I think, and he's taking minutes away from guys like Obi Toppin's shown flashes of being like a really good NBA player, but he hasn't gotten the minutes. And Tibbs already has a play the young guy issue, but I think their bench is looking like they have Derrick Rose. Cam Reddish is still a really underrated pickup that Tibbs also hasn't played, but I don't know. I don't think it moves the needle right now at all. But I'm also on the RJ Barrett team. I think he will keep progressing into a really, really good NBA player. But yeah, I think this is a good thing for the Knicks. They needed a point guard forever, and they got it. I would really like them to trade Julius Randle and guys for Donovan Mitchell.
We tried that. We tried that during our mock draft, and nobody wanted him when I tried to trade him. So, hey, Cam, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I like the Brunson signing, and I think it is a pretty good budget. And it's nice to see the Knicks with a cap sheet that's not like terrifying anymore.
Right.
Because I mean, they're paying Brunson 24, 25. They're paying Randall about the same. They're overpaying for Fournier and Rose, but those, like, Rose has one more year, and then there's a team option, and then Fournier's got 2 more years and then a team option. So I don't know, they've got some flexibility. Like if they wanted to hop into free agency next year, they see that one guy that they really want to go after, they've got that option, and they've got some young guys that are developing, and they've got some veteran players that have shown they can be a part of a playoff run, regardless of how you feel about Randall or Brunson. Like they've shown that they can be really good to great complementary assets. So, I mean, you got to think at some point the Knicks are going to hit on a free agent. Like it's New York. At some point, they have to. Somebody's going to want to play there. They were close to KD, and then they picked the Nets. So all that didn't go well. So
yeah, they're probably happy about that.
Yeah, they've dodged a bullet on that one. But,
I think they did that 2 years ago. I think they proved with Thibodeau and Randall having that season that they're ready to be a good team again. It's just the best free agent at a position of need was Evan Fournier. And then they were bad again. And now, so I think, like you said, I think in a couple of years they can look towards free agency.
Yeah, I mean, they're never going to be able to build through the draft because the fans just will tear them apart for every year that they're at top 5 in the lottery and missing. Like they basically have become the kings of the East somehow. It's sad.
If the Knicks stuck with Ousmane Dieng, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Seriously.
They chew that out in 2 years.
Yeah. But,
I tend to look at this team and I'm thinking, okay, they might squeeze into the playoffs, finish around 500. And to me, the only hope is that some other young guys step up and take several of their young guys take the next step. And I do see promise on that roster. You know, Barrett, Quickly, Grimes, Reddish, Keels, Toppin, even Mitchell Robinson. You know, so any of those guys could actually take another step. I mean, because they're probably every one of the single Barrett too. I forgot Barrett, but every single, even Miles McBride. I would say every single player that I mentioned is probably so far underperformed their draft slot. Because Quickly, as much as most people were like, wow, the Knicks took him at 26, or wherever they took them, you know, we had him ranked that high. We liked Quickly. So we weren't surprised that somebody did that. But yeah, I just think nobody, you know, definitely Reddish hasn't performed up his draft slot. Toppin hasn't. Mitchell Robinson, I suppose, is right about where we thought he would be. But yeah, and Barrett, I would say, is as well as he's done, he still hasn't really lived up to being, you know, top 3 player. So yeah. All right.
As of right now, looking at the 2019 draft, you go Zion, Ja, and then you're looking at RJ Barrett.
Yeah.
Not great.
Some of the interesting free agent moves occurred close to me in my Sixers. And somehow Philadelphia convinced James Harden to take less money on and opt out of his player option. And so by doing so, they freed up about $10 million in cap space. They also didn't make a long-term commitment to Harden, which I was pleased about. And I will, you know, what Harden did actually was a very mature thing to do, something that somebody might do if they're interested in winning. So that really surprised me, and I was very pleased about that. And then they took and gave the extra money. I was totally wrong about the contract last episode, but they gave 3 years, $33 million deal to PJ Tucker, who I believe turned 78 today. So anyway, yeah, I'm not thrilled about the Tucker signing. To me, it seems like a waste of $11 million a year. I mean, where are you gonna? Is he now Embiid's backup? Is that why we got him? Because you know you already have a 4. You have a decent backup 4. You have Paul Reed. You have Charles Bassey, who's hasn't really had a chance yet. I don't know. It just seems like they have a lot of young guys that. I mean, obviously, $11 million a year in NBA terms is not a big deal, but I'm just not like, wow, that's the player we needed. That's the player who put us over the edge. I don't know how much is Isaiah Hartenstein making? Is he making around the same amount?
I think it's the exact same.
Yeah. So now if they signed him, I'd be like, yay, because, I mean, honestly, Tucker's going to be what, 40 when his contract's up?
Oh, excuse me, Rich. Hartenstein signed for less.
Oh, jeez.
He's making 7.8 year 1, 8.2 year 2.
Yeah. So, this and the nepotism that the Sixers are now showing to former Houston players is insane, because they brought in House, they brought in the G League MVP, help me out here, Queen. So, it's all so obvious that for some reason there's this drive to collect everybody he knew at Houston. And that seems so amateurish. You only collect the people I've seen this happen in the NFL a lot, where they go get my guy. All right. And it really works because your guys have aged 2-3 years, or I don't know, they just haven't panned out. It's just knowing someone. Okay, yes, you want good relationships with your players, but if you can't build relationships with more talented players, then that's your problem. It's not the player's problem. So yeah, I'm still not overly happy where the Sixers go, but I will say Harden made a mature move that should have helped the team, but then the Sixers dropped the ball and it didn't help the team. Connor?
James Harden took that pay cut and forked over $30 million over 2 years,
Yeah.
but wouldn't play for OKC because we were $6 million shy of the max. That made me so mad when I got that Harden taking a big pay cut. I was like, where was this?
Different
Where was this
age,
10 years
different
ago?
times in his career. That's why.
For sure. But
The window's closing for him quickly.
No, I think it was very mature of him. Probably the most unexpected move of the offseason, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see more stars do this. Because Dwayne Wade took pay cuts to make the big three happen. Like, in recent years, like, look at what Bradley Beal just did. Like, could you imagine if Bradley Beal took a pay cut to get, I mean, obviously Washington's not exactly best landing spot for a free agent, but like what Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal just did is say, like, I'm going to make the money and we're not going to have any cap space to get any other player on the roster.
I was going to get to that later on in the show. Yeah.
So I think James Harden's really, really mature for doing that.
Indeed. Cam?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to harp on that. Like, ultimately, the league created the Supermax to try and keep guys with the team that drafted them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's totally backfired because guys are seeing now that if you sign a Supermax, your team will never be successful again because you're untradeable or borderline untradeable for the team. And they can't get anybody good to play with you because you're taking up a third of the cap.
Right. This happens in the NFL too with quarterbacks. They sign a guy like Aaron Rodgers and they can't afford to put anybody around him. So
exactly.
Yeah, I agree. It's crazy. How do Beal and Damian compare in age? I think
Beal's 29, Dame's 32.
Oh, okay. Lillard I know is 32, but I thought Beal might be around 27, so he's a little older than I thought.
I think Beal is 29 or 30.
He's 29.
I didn't realize he was that old. Okay. So some other players on the move, and I don't know if anybody wants to expand on any of these guys, but these are some good role players that moved to different teams. Kyle Anderson went to Minnesota. Gary Payton moved to Portland. JaVale McGee moved to Dallas. Dante DiVincenzo went to Golden State. John Wall goes to the Clippers. Bruce Brown goes to the Nuggets. Gallinari goes to Boston. Malik Monk, Sacramento. Otto Porter, Toronto. DeLon Wright, the Wizards. Andre Drummond, Chicago. Joe Ingles, who's still injured, goes to Milwaukee. TJ Warren to Brooklyn. Lonnie Walker to the Lakers. And Thomas Bryant to the Lakers. Anyone have any thoughts on those guys?
I'll make a thought about TJ Warren because I saw they did that and I was like, if Kyrie and KD return, the Nets would honestly look pretty good. Like, TJ Warren is probably one of the better signings because he's a one-year deal. Hypothetically, Kyrie, KD do come back. He's a really good piece around them. If the more likely option, they're both gone, TJ Warren is a classic, like, he's going to average 20 for us. We're going to ship him at the deadline for value. And that's like, I don't know, that's such a good deal for Brooklyn.
The only problem there is he hasn't played for about 2 years. So
true, but that's the thing. If he's really bad, and you can't get value at the deadline.
Yeah, you've lost.
You just let him. Let him walk. Yeah.
Right. Anyone? A couple of these signings really piqued me. I love DiVincenzo go to Golden State. I think he's, I think he'll flourish there. I think Wall will help the Clippers. I love Bruce Brown. Wherever Bruce Brown would have gone, I would have said good signing. All right. So that's, great for the Nuggets, who basically seem to have a really crappy offseason altogether, but that was a great move. They kind of to save some stuff by signing him. Anybody else have any other thoughts on those guys?
I got to give a shout out to Gary Payton getting that bag.
Right.
That's a nice payday for a guy that was out of the league.
Yeah.
7 months ago.
Yeah.
That'll be a really interesting signing. I've had a lot of Warriors fans like up in arms about us losing him, supposedly over less than $3 million a year. I think swapping out DiVincenzo for Gary Payton is phenomenal. I love Gary Payton. He's a great guy. He's a hell of a teammate and a competitor, but I think he's going to underperform that contract. Not drastically, but I think you look at his career arc, and it's like you happen to flourish on a team with Steph Curry, Kerr at the helm, Draymond, Clay. It's not a coincidence that you were struggling, and then you come to what is now the best organization from a structure standpoint and arguably an on-court standpoint, and then thrive. He's going to do fine, but I would, if you told me I could have Gary Payton or bring in DiVincenzo, I would take DiVincenzo. A player to player. But Gary Payton brings great defensive intensity. He's a great like locker room guy. But before he got hurt, when he like blew out his ankle, DiVincenzo was a huge part of that Bucks team that made that championship run. And now the Warriors are going to have him for less than $10 million across 2 years.
Top 20 former top 20 pick,
yeah.
National championship guy, can shoot, good athlete.
He returns the form. He's a better basketball player. He can, in a pinch, you can throw him at the one. I mean, it's not ideal, but you can do a lot with him. Gary Payton was, you're going to defend, you're going to slash. And I think the Blazers the Blazers bought into the hype. Will Gary Payton be fine next year? Sure. Is Gary Payton going to have the same impact out with the Warriors? I doubt it.
Right.
Yeah. My other take is, how the heck does Kyle Anderson fit with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert? I mean, talk about the slowest front three of all time.
We should challenge them to a relay race. Us four against those three. I think we win.
Oh, we 100% win.
Are you kidding me?
Guys, we would 100% win. I run a mile in under 5 minutes. We're good.
Yeah, we're your gooch. I ran cross country.
I ran cross country and track.
I start off the race. I will run 20 feet and hand the baton to Drew.
Yeah.
We got you. We're the anchors.
Yeah, it's gonna be easy. Just hand us the stick.
Okay, my other underrated one is the Kings trading for DiVincenzo just to turn around and swap him out for Malik Monk and pay Malik Monk more money. That's sus. I like it. Classic Kings move. I'm honestly shocked they didn't give Monk the 5-year max or the 4-year max. Hey, they gave him $19 million. They're not far off.
Yeah, I'm like, at this
almost
point,
as much as Brunson. Almost as much as Brunson, no?
Not far off. About half.
Oh wait, so what was it? 19 million over what?
19 over 2.
Over 2. It's not 19 per year. Oh my god, they gave him 19 per year. Oh my god. I would have literally just said blow up the arena. Stick the front office in the building and blow up the arena. Right. 20 million a year.
All right. So of the guys who re-upped with their teams, any reactions there? I mean, we did start to talk about Lillard and Beal and how they've handcuffed their own teams. And the thing I want to say is, about Lillard, he supposedly was heavily involved with the draft selection of Shaedon Sharpe, who, by the way, his NBA career lasted 6 minutes in summer league. And then he was shut down with, I believe, a large pimple on his shoulder. So we'll hear more about medical reports on that later. But anyway, Lillard supposedly, wants the team to win, and then you take $60 million a year. Your team can't win if you're getting paid $60 million a year at 32 years old. And I do have the number right, correct? It's $120 million for 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah. So
on top of his 2-year contract.
Right. So your team is not going to win because of your salary, and you're going to be 34 years old. So if you dare mention anything about the way your team's built or what your team needs or whatever, and any unpleasantness about your own team, you can only to blame yourself. So because that salary is just going to totally handcuff the organization. So I see you guys have comments on either the free agent signings or the guys who re-upped. That was the one pet peeve I had to get in there. Go ahead, Drew.
The Blazers win the award for what the hell were they doing this offseason? You draft Shaedon Sharpe, the biggest question mark, but then you hand Nurkic a $70 million contract. You extend Dame so you can compete now. But then a young guy in Anthony Simons, who showed a lot of promise, but is still yet to prove himself, he also gets a $100 million 4-year extension. What are they thinking? like I seriously, I just don't understand it. This team is going nowhere fast. Dame should not be on the NBA 75 list. I have huge issues with that. How the hell that happened is still a question mark. This team is going nowhere fast, and these are some of the worst contracts. Why is Nurkic back on the team?
So Simmons, and even though I get my contracts always screwed up, he is making Brunson money.
He's making he's making roughly the same amount as Brunson. And he flashed when Dame was out and all that, sure. But how is he going to look with Dame for a full season? Nurkic is getting $70 million a year. He's going to need the ball. Shaedon Sharp's going to have to develop unless you stick him in the G League the whole time. I mean,
wait, no, but he has a serious injury now. Give him a break.
And he just traded for Jeremy Grant. So you got a guy that went to Detroit because he wants to be the guy.
Their offseason. That's why, like,
I'm telling you, with Sharp, the shoulder injury is just the start. It's just the start.
Yeah, no, it's a complete. They're trying to balance winning now and youth, a la how the Warriors have done it. But the Warriors, honestly, it was a combination of good and bad luck. There were just injuries that happened to land them some top prospects, but they had the star players who just need to get healthy. These guys have healthy stars. Whatever we want to think is going on with Sharp, and now they're bringing young guys. This is a debacle. I think this is a massive failure of a season for them.
And if
horrible.
If I could just add one more thing before we beat Portland totally in the ground, but I'm going to throw some dirt on them too. If you look at their draft picks, okay, a lot of these guys were guys that had character issues in college, and they still drafted them. And so they have a slew of these guys, starting with Sharp, but Nasir Little, Greg Brown, and who the heck am I missing? Waterford of LSU. We're talking all guys that came in, with issues of, do these guys have what it take? Do they really want to play basketball? That type of stuff. And Portland collected them all. Go ahead, Connor.
I'm going to beat Portland just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. But the Dame contract, on top of Drew just mentioned that the $60 million per year one is added on top of his already contract extended, right? Damian Lillard showed signs of regression last year. He was injured. He only played 30 games, but he shot 40% from the field, 32 from three. Like, he showed like he was getting worse already at 32. And you see guys starting to get worse around 32, but like he really regressed, and now he could bounce back and be the 30 Dame we know and love, kind of. But I wouldn't take that chance. $60 million is crazy. But I think we're done.
No, we're not. Because
we're not?
I'll tell you why. Because think about it. He missed almost 40 games last year, so he played about half the season. If he plays 75% of his games over the next 2 years, he'll make roughly $1 million a game. That's insane. And the team will not win because of that.
Yeah, I think we're done with Portland. I think they're dead.
Well, hey, Cam hasn't chimed in. Cam,
pull him out of the grave and shoot him in the head again.
What we could do, Cam, is we could unbury them, and then we could drive more nails in the coffin, and then re-throw the dirt back on them.
Here, let me revive Portland a little bit, because before I moved to Denver, I gotta be honest, I love Portland. I love Dame. Dame is probably one of my favorite players in the NBA, actually. And you know what? The team's going to suck. They're going to have a chance, sure. I think they actually added enough talent this year that they might be able to make some noise. I think people are going to be surprised. But my biggest thing is the NBA needs guys like Dame Lillard and Brad Beal to be successful. Because these guys, they care about winning. They want to be, they want to win. But they also care about the tradition of the NBA. Like staying with one team is such a powerful thing. And I don't know if guys appreciate it anymore. But like, you know what? Yeah, Dirk Nowitzki gave up some money. He made plenty in his career. He won a championship in Dallas, and he did it the right way. But he is going to forever have a business connection to Dallas, let alone like just beloved just absolutely beloved by Dallas fans forever. And that's what Dame's looking for. You know, if there are any Wizards fans out there, I'm sure you guys love Brad Beal just as much, even though I don't really get why. But like, I just, we need more players like this that believe in their team, that they're competitive. They don't want to just join some other team and win automatically. Like, this is what the league is about.
Oh,
And now if you guys want to bury this,
well, you know what, while you were talking, I
actually
actually came up with an idea how you can make this work. You could have like a loyalty number. Like, seriously, I'm not joking about this. If you want to keep your guys, if the NBA thinks it's important to keep a guy in one organization for his career, which happened quite often, with people like Magic and Bird and if you want to keep a guy in there for his whole career, then you have to give the team, so I'm not against the Supermax, but you have to not have that count fully against the cap. Can't penalize the team for it that way. Otherwise, teams are going to be, teams are not going to want to, eventually they're going to wise up and say, hey, Dame, we love you. We'd love to have you on here. We'd love to give you $60 million a year, but you're going to kill us, with a cap.
Yeah. And like, that would be such a great way to prioritize guys to stay. It's like, oh, I can make that much money and I can win. And same thing with the teams. Like, it doesn't make any sense to sign one guy to a third of your cap space because you can't do anything with it. And now you're just paying this dude for no reason.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Connor, you have anything else? Or should we move on to the mailbag?
I feel like, all right, I'll talk about Lou Dort a little bit. I was going to slander Portland more, but I'll let them rest. I'll let them rest. I'll let Dame not run from the grind. So I do want to talk about Lou Dort a little bit, because this is a guy who went undrafted, was on a 2-way contract, and then played really, really well for that 2019-2020 Thunder team. And then we gave him 4 years, $5 million with a team option on the end, which is one of the biggest steals of a contract in NBA history. Maybe not NBA history, but
it was a very good deal. Years. Very good.
Yeah. And for us to really just, decline his option, I think it was $1.9 million, and then give him that long-term contract that's both, giving an undrafted player life-changing money, but it's also pretty team-friendly. It's got a team option on the end. $5 million of it is like unlikely bonuses, which means like if you win MVP, here's $1 million, which I like. Lou Dort's my favorite player. I don't know about all that, but a team-friendly deal. And I like to see this because I think this is going to be a player who's not a Damian Lillard caliber, but I think he's going to, I think that shows a lot of loyalty in the NBA, because Lou Dort, with how the market is, we just saw Evan Fournier get more than that. And Lou Dort's a way better player, in my opinion.
Much better.
Lou
and
Dort
much younger.
Open market. Yeah. Lou Dort could have hit the open market and easily got 20 plus, I think. But he got a little less, but still got that life-changing money. So I think one of the more low-key like re-signs, but it's one I really like for both the player and the team.
Lou was so miscast, in college, and I was really down on him because, he came in touted, a lot of us, I don't have time to watch international ball, high school ball, college ball all at the same time. So college guys, or high school guys coming to college, we're on a learning curve there. And so I'm expecting, Lou Dort is such a great athlete, and he was a disaster on offense. He was, they kind of let him run the offense, and it was a disaster. And I was like, oh my God, this guy doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to playing basketball. And offensively, that was the case. But then I see him in the NBA, and I know he was a good defender. We have a scouting report somewhere on him, or I know I did a write-up on him, and I said right then he was premier defender. But when I saw him in the NBA, I didn't realize how good of a defender he was. And that's effort. He puts in effort, and I love guys that give effort. And so congratulations to Mr. Dort. So shall we move on to the mailbag? Our first question is from John S. And it's actually more of a comment, but I thought it was worthy of responding to. And he was talking about the subject was Orlando Robinson, who was not drafted and was playing for the Heat in Summer League. And John says, I hate all the stats, the vertical jump, etc. A good coach or scout will see what a player could do or potentially do. His IQ is very high and is extremely coachable young man. So I don't know exactly what he's talking about. Like, we've done a lot of coverage on Orlando. We had an extensive interview with him. We had a scouting report on him this year. We did a short video scouting report on him on YouTube. But I get the sense he's taking a shot at us as scouts because we
Don't
actually
hold back, Rich.
Yeah,
Don't hold back, Rich.
He's taking a shot at us because we actually look at the numbers from the combine. So let's talk about that, John. Orlando was somebody who has been on my draft or our draft board for 3 years and moved up probably in the low 100s last year and then was in the top 100 for most of this year, somewhere between, I'd say, 55 and maybe 85, floating around that area. So just barely draftable range. And one of the reasons is whether you use the eye test or whether you look at his combine numbers, you can clearly see that Orlando doesn't have great athletic skill. And whether you like that or not, there is certain things, especially at certain positions, that you cannot overcome. And lack of athleticism or being heavy, which causes you to have lack of athleticism. I'm not saying Orlando's heavy, by the way. I'm just saying, will stop you from playing in the NBA. And it damn well will stop you from being a great NBA player, and it might prevent you from playing altogether. So in Orlando's case is he tested very poorly in 2021, and then he came back this year and didn't really improve. So it's not like, sometimes when a guy takes a test, like say JD Davidson of Alabama this year, we're like, wow, I thought he was a great athlete. And he turns out he doesn't have a great, maybe throw that under, maybe he had a bad day. It happens. I have results in our database where a guy is like in the 90th percentile overall on one day and at the 50th on another. So that can happen. But with Orlando, he had 2 years in a row where he was near the bottom. And so and you can see it when you watch him. So if you're saying we're not watching, I'm a little offended by that, but I wish him luck. And I think he's got a lot of skill, especially as a passer and a shooter. So he might stick. So Griffin from Colorado asks, is there a move that has flown under the radar that might just win a franchise a title? I assume he means this year. And I assume he means, like, when he says a move, I'm assuming that's a draft pick and or a trade or any new guy, I would assume. So what do you guys have for that? That's a good question.
I don't know if there was any, I would never say there's a draft pick that's going to put anybody over the top. I just don't think that it's very rare for a rookie to have that level of an impact. But I don't know. I feel like all the big moves that we talked about were like with teams that are either already like that were well known, they weren't under the radar, or they were moves that the jury's still out on. I mean, I'm looking at like our list of guys who are on the move, and like I think Gallinari, as adding to that kind of bench mob at Boston is going to be a really good move. I mean, that team is deep with both veteran and young talent. I've already talked about how I think DiVincenzo was a signing that if he can get back to form is going to drastically outperform his contract. But I don't know if there's any move that you like look at this and go, oh yeah, because a lot of the teams that had money aren't in a spot to win, and a lot of the teams that are contending, they made moves along the margin. And for the most part, like the Warriors got DiVincenzo, but yeah, they lost Gary Payton, they lost Otto Porter, and the Celtics' big move, Brogdon's not really under the radar. Like that was, we all talked about it as our favorite move of the thing. So nothing too crazy.
I actually thought you were going to say that pick because, I mean, when when people are talking, anywhere when you go around where people talking NBA stuff, nobody's talking about Brogdon. So to
That's
me,
fair.
And they're talking about Brunson, they're talking about, Ayton, or Kevin Durant or whatever, all that stuff. They don't really mention Brogdon. But so to me,
Then
that
Brogdon's
would
the
be,
one.
huh?
That would be the one.
Yeah,
If I had to pick, that would be the
agree.
one.
I would agree.
A+ move, in my opinion.
Connor?
Yeah, I was gonna say Brogdon, but that is the easy answer. So I'm gonna say John Wall. We're not too far removed from John Wall being an incredible basketball player. Obviously, health is an issue, but last year John Wall wanted to play basketball so bad, and the Rockets just didn't let him. And I don't know. I think he can kind of use that and really put on like a really good year with the Clippers. And Clippers are a team that's really struggled with injuries. But as of right now, Wall's healthy, PG's healthy, Kawhi's healthy. And I think that team, every year everyone's been like, oh, the Clippers are scary. But I think this year, I think they actually are. So I think John Wall could end up putting them over the edge and finally into that like championship contention.
And even though all those guys are kind of getting up in years, they're so deep at all the spots, they don't have to play huge minutes. Nobody has to play huge minutes there. And Wall adds to that, So if you're worried about wearing Wall down, you don't have to worry because there's also Ricky Jackson and or Reggie Jackson, excuse me. So yeah, Cam.
Yeah, Connor beat me to it. John Wall was going to be my kind of sleeper signing. Obviously, I think if you're talking about a move that could win the team the title, Brogdon is the pretty clear pick. But yeah, I think you're getting a healthy Kawhi back, hopefully. And we haven't seen him in a while, but when he was healthy, he's that guy. Yeah. He's maybe the best player in the NBA when healthy.
Yeah. I love Kawhi. Okay, good answers. So Marcus asked a somewhat similar question saying, hey guys, draft and all, which teams had the best offseason so far? Who wants to take a crack at this? I have my answer. Connor? I
kind of had a really like an early guess. I really thought about every team,
right?
But a team I think has one of the best and ongoing is the Indiana Pacers. I'm such a big fan of what they did with Sabonis and Halliburton. And Duarte, I thought was a really good pick for them. But even this year, I think Benedict Matherin's one of the very under the radar draft picks. I think he's going to be exactly what Victor Oladipo was for them. I just think he's one of the better wing players in the draft, and I think he's really going to develop in Indiana. I was really rooting for them to get Ayton. It seems like there's some interesting stuff happening with that, but if they do get Ayton, I think that's a really good use of their money because they're a small market team. Where else is that money going to go? So I think if they're able to develop that number one overall pick, this is the same team that developed Domantas Sabonis from a bench player on OKC who barely got minutes, and when he played those minutes, he wasn't very good, into an all-star. So I think if they can, if they do get Ayton, pending, I think they're having arguably the best offseason so far, and I just really like where they're at as a franchise and moving forward.
Anyone else have a pick?
I'll give the Kings a little bit of shine. Keegan Murray actually looks like for once the Kings didn't screw up. Keegan Murray has looked awesome in summer league so far. He looks more athletic than I thought he was going to be, and they finally hit on a draft pick. And I made fun of Malik Monk a second ago, but I appreciate when college backcourts reunite in the league. De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk were really good together, and they actually play off their strengths super well.
I thought they should have taken him in the draft, but they traded down for Justin Jackson, I think, or something.
Yeah.
But,
and you know what? With Sabonis is really good. I think he somehow became underrated after the Halliburton trade. He is an amazing player. He's like a poor man's Jokic. Love that phrase, yeah. Poor man's.
They also added Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, added Kevin Huerter. They still have what's his face, the old the original Andrew Wiggins of the Golden State franchise.
Harrison Barnes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Harrison Barnes. Yeah, the original Andrew Wiggins.
And one of the more slept on summer league like really good performers is Keon Ellis. He's shooting 57%. Yeah, 57% from three. And I know I don't want to overreact to summer league games, but he looks really, really good.
I had the Kings take him in our mock draft. That's who I had them draft in the second round.
We had him in draftable range.
He was the guy that I was like, there's no way this guy is not getting drafted. Like,
well, the only thing I was concerned about was his skinny frame.
He's so light.
Because it's not like he's a 18-year-old or 19-year-old skinny guy. He's a 22-year-old skinny guy.
Yeah.
And then you begin to wonder, can he put on the weight? But, he's still 22. Maybe Alabama didn't really stress that type of thing. He was obviously Alabama's best player this year. So, yeah. Kings, my reaction is I think that Fox and Monk will win as much at Sacramento, win as many titles at Sacramento as they did at Kentucky.
I didn't say they're winning, but they had a good offseason.
My pick is, and it surprised me Connor didn't go this direction, is maybe on a pure talent standpoint, I'd have to go with Houston, but the pick I like, and I wouldn't say they're going to make the biggest incremental move, but I think they made the most important moves, and that's the Boston Celtics. Now, we beat this to death with Gallinari and Brogdon, but I just think they've just taken that extra step to get them over the hump, something the Suns didn't do last year, which we also talked about earlier. So next question is Eric from New Jersey asks, I have been seeing a lot of Ben Simmons trade rumors. I haven't actually. I mean, I've heard them come up, but I haven't seen a lot of specific rumors. His name keeps on cropping up, but it seems like it's going to be hard to move him. What's the over under on how many games he'll play for the Brooklyn Nets? So that's a good question. What do we got for over under on how many games Ben Simmons? I assume that we'll say this year or career. Let's just say this year. How many games does Ben play this year for the Brooklyn Nets, ranging from 0 to, we'll say, 82, because playoffs are variable.
Over under at 45. Over on that.
Drew.
You said 45, Cam. That's where.
Okay, Cam set the bar, so now we'll go over under. I say, I'll say over.
Yeah, I'm gonna say over. He can't afford another. If he's healthy, he cannot afford another season where he doesn't suit up, regardless of the KD Kyrie situation, because he's already kind of destroyed his credibility around the league as a competitor and a player and as a teammate. So if he sits out again, especially with the way the team is trending, this is his chance to put it. If Ben Simmons shows up, plays 65 games, and plays his ass off and plays hard, and they're not going to make. Look, if KD and Kyrie leave, they're not making the playoffs. But if he comes out, plays hard, just shows this is the perfect situation for him to just say, screw it, I'm going to start shooting threes because we already suck as a team. I'm going to show improvement. He can build a lot of goodwill, not just with the fan base, but around the league. And then if he wants out, and he can. But he needs to play at least 65, so I'm going to say over, because if he goes under and he's not legitimately hurt, he's done. Ben Simmons' credibility is going to hit negative numbers at this point.
Connor?
I'm going to also say the over. And I'm one of the very few Ben Simmons supporters. I've always been a proponent of get him out of Philly, because it makes no sense to have a point guard or a tall point guard at that who can't shoot and put him next to Joel Embiid. That logic made no sense.
It never did.
And I was saying some hot takes in 2019. I was like, if you put Ben Simmons on the team, if you put Ben Simmons on the Bucks and replace him for Giannis, I think they'd be similar. Obviously, that's a very hot take. Doesn't really hold up, but I think he's a guy where
you think he would match well with Giannis.
No. I think if you replace Ben Simmons if you replace Giannis with Ben Simmons because of play style, I don't think they're that. drastically
Well,
different.
I consider Ben
This was-
Simmons a point center. So if he's a
Yeah.
point center, you can't have another center. So
No, I'm not saying pair him with Giannis, but what I'm saying is I think if Ben Simmons has a team around him that has shooters,
mhm.
I think the whole shooting issue is so much less of a problem. And I think the whole shooting issue was highlighted by the fact that he was with Joel Embiid, who that spacing was really bad.
Mhm.
So I'm really big on Ben Simmons. If they trade Kyrie, KD, keep Ben Simmons, and field a solid team around him, they're going to have Cam Thomas. I think that's a great player to put him around him.
Mhm.
TJ Warren's the only because his game's a little slower. He's more of a mid-range shot creator player, but I don't know. I just think I'm not out on Ben Simmons at all. And he was second in defensive player of the year voting in the last full year he played.
Yep.
Like, so I think he will play over 45 games from that. I think he'll play every game, not every game, like 82, but I don't think he'll be traded from the Nets.
Yeah. Good sign for Simmons is that he's been in summer league, unlike Kyrie or Durant. So that shocked me. We've talked on this show. I mean, Hugh said he's just somebody who doesn't like basketball that much. And so for him to be at summer league is definitely a positive sign. Cam, any final thoughts on that?
I think I'm going to take the under.
Wow.
And here's why. If the Nets, and now they don't have to trade KD, they have him under contract, but ultimately they're going to just destroy their own value by holding him, especially if it's a holdout situation. For them to trade him, they're going to want to get back a young player. And there's been some talk about it, but with like the way that a lot of cap like young extensions work, you can only have one. It's like a designated
rookie extensions, players on rookie extensions.
And he still hasn't played a game for them. They were kind of handcuffed into taking him because they knew they were going to lose Harden. I don't know. I just think if they get the opportunity to use him as the second piece in a 3-team deal, I don't think they're going to hesitate.
Yeah, I think I heard though that like he couldn't be traded to a team like Denver because of like Michael Porter's contract. It's the same type of contract.
Well, you would allow you to swap them.
Oh,
they would be trading him out for a different designated rookie.
They just can't stay on the same roster, but they can be traded for one another.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think just
on
for
the side
that
now,
reason,
Michael Porter's healthy. Go ahead, Kim.
No, I think just for that reason, I don't know if he's going to finish the season with the Nets.
Right. Okay. So 3. We should remember that number. I'm going to put it right here in the script. 45. Good question. All right, folks. Please keep on sending us your questions to admin@hoopsprospects.com. It's ADMIN. I want to thank all of our listeners. We'll be back next week to discuss NBA Summer League action with our golden boy, Hugh. So we'll see you next week.
Peace.